Welcome to the Catch Up podcast. We are this time joined by the guys from Proof3. We've got Joe Turner and Ilan Butler. Thank you both for coming along.
Morning.
I suppose we'll get started with sort of what led you to this point with Proof3. Sort of, if you can give us a little bit of a background from you guys individually and then collectively, how you met and whatnot. Not too much detail, Ilan, please.
Did sound a bit love story vibes there, didn't it?
So if you want to give us a little bit of history about how you basically got into e-commerce as a starting point, then how we got to Proof3.
You go first.
You want me to go?
Yeah, go for it.
I
always do all the talking. So.
I always get to go first. So, I've potted history, I guess, of my background. So, I started at Sega working for Football Manager. So, a bit of a dream job as a football fan.
Name dropping already.
You can imagine, yeah, sorry to name drop. But, literally just starting there. So, I was doing content, set up their first social media pages. So, I think it was in the age. I think Bebo had just gone by that point, But yeah, we're going back a few years. So
wow,
good old days.
So yeah, launched the Facebook page. So did that for a couple of years, and then moved back up north. So I went to market Birmingham as a city, which you can imagine is interesting.
Fun.
So do you know what? Actually, I've got a proper love for Birmingham now after spending sort of 3-4 years working there. It's quite a cool city. But yeah, selling that as a destination to live, do business. So once you can do that, you can I figured you can turn your hand to anything really. So then I went to work for an agency, which is how I then sort of really first got my experience of e-commerce. So we used to do web builds, but it was more of an advertising agency, to be honest. But yeah, obviously did quite a lot of SEO and paid advertising was kind of my sort of background. Yeah. So, and then joined iWeb about 7 years ago, and we're kind of getting to the Proof3 story nearly. But so I joined iWeb as to set up the marketing agency. So iWeb is like Adobe Commerce Gold Partner, end-to-end, do big B2B, Magento builds, or not allowed to call it Magento anymore, are we? But Adobe Commerce builds. You can edit that bit out after. So to grow, so what they never did was marketing in-house. So I joined to grow the team. So we kind of focused on SEO and content to begin with, and then grew the paid side of the business. So working with people like Tile Giant, who we still work with now, through to loads of companies that you've not many sexy names, so not like lots of B2B stuff, people doing multi-million. And yeah, I guess we were so Kanuka Digital was the spin-off of iWeb, but it was, I guess, quite a traditional marketing agency in that, we were kind of full service digital marketing agency, which was cool. We built a really nice client base, got to a certain point, but then realised, actually, do you know what? We were missing a piece of the jigsaw because we were doing a lot of acquisition, a lot of getting people to the site, but between us and iWeb, we weren't really doing that piece of, obviously, actually optimising the websites for conversions once people got there. So hence how we started working with Ilan. And it's been a lovely 18 months, or 2 years, I guess, since we started working with Ilan. Ilan started working with us on a couple of projects. Obviously, that went really well. And then kind of back end of last year, we saw the opportunity to kind of evolve what Kanuka was doing and excuse the pun, but future-proof ourselves. So do something a little bit different and make it more CRO and data. Mainly because we just saw that's where a lot of the gaps were in our clients' businesses, is getting their heads around their own data, just everything from cookie compliance through to how they're actually harnessing their own data for their advertising and for the methods. So that's a real potted history. Hopefully I've not rambled too much, but
I'm going to struggle to follow that.
I'll let Ilan do it. So Ilan's got a way more interesting background than me. So
definitely not. No, to be fair, I started off really self-taught in graphic design and some light user experience stuff. And weirdly, I used to do local projects with businesses and things like that. And people used to ask for websites because you think graphic design goes hand in hand with building websites. Yeah. We're talking 10, 15 years ago. So I was like, I must be missing a trick here with the website of things. So I started to get into web design more and all the code, that sort of stuff, just building websites from scratch. A lot of people do, that's how a lot of people started. And then I was really lucky. I got an opportunity to move into marketing in a company, quite low down, and work my way up quite high, just helping improve the marketing. I was learning on the job, it was the truest form of, fake it till you make it kind of thing. It's just true, isn't it? Sometimes you just don't know all the answers, so you have to go for it. And I just went full tilt on it, and then I moved into a different space completely, and I ended up working with the types of companies Joe was talking about, that not so sexy, but hundreds of thousands of SKUs, delivering those to multiple B2B clients, that kind of stuff on a global scale, and had some really good opportunities there to work with some horrible systems, lots of legacy softwares, terrible data. But it really opened my eyes to just how much people miss on the data side of things, and how we deliver an experience that we expect users to use and to enjoy and make purchases with. And a lot of companies out there, even today, they don't really think about that. They'll just deliver one specific experience and be like, that's fine for everybody to use. But I'm really, really passionate about just delivering the best experience on web.
Yeah.
I've worked in digital and print and all that sort of stuff in the past as well. But that's what led me into CRO. So I spent a good 6-7 years working solidly on optimizing user journeys whilst in these corporates. And then I started to do a bit of freelance, like a lot of people did after COVID. You just wanted to do something different. I'm not the only person that was doing that. A lot of people did. And then I ended up working on a project alongside iWeb, which opened doors, and then working on a few projects with Kanuka. And then we all realized, all the people that are involved in iWeb and Proof3, that there was a great opportunity here to try and take the CRO thing and the data side of thing to the next level, and probably not just do your typical here's money for marketing, which is what a lot of it's people pay you, they want a bit of SEO, they want a bit of this, they want a bit of that, but people don't really. I want to say people. I don't generally. A lot of the companies we work with, they're normally quite stretched, very, very lean teams. I find that a lot in marketing these days, even in some of the bigger companies. And they need assistance in how to harness this data, where to prioritize that spend, even from not when I say CRO, you always think like optimizing something on a website. The worst case example is changing the color of a button, which is a horrible example.
Which is what a lot of people come and ask.
But yeah, that's the thing. People come and ask for that. They're like, oh, I want a bit of split testing, and in most cases, we're like, your problem isn't split testing right now. It's higher up the funnel. It might be how you acquire customers or the functions of your website. So what we deliver isn't probably just like your traditional CRO. It's more around customer journey optimization, where we take into consideration how people arrive on the website, how they interact with the functions of the website, like search, which is why we're so passionate about Salesfire and those kinds of features, and things like email automation, abandoned basket workflows, email retargeting. There's so much data that's usable, and it's not just data that you can use to create trends or understand how people interact with your website. It's actually information you can use to market more efficiently to customers and not just spam them with absolute rubbish. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is just delivering a good experience, and not one that's just very personalized one, not one that's just
I think that's something that comes through just from speaking to the pair of you as well. It's not like this is a job by any stretch. It's very like you get actually interested in getting into the weeds of things and understanding what somebody values and how their site is maybe falling down at the present moment. I think just to talk about it there, obviously you spoke about working with not so sexy brands and people who do the B2B element and whatnot. I think one of the biggest things we've noticed at the present moment from our end is the B2B customers that we speak to are now not so much looking at just the site and what it does and having a site. It's more creating that experience that looks something like D2C, but is usable in a B2B environment. Is that fair to say?
I think it's 100% fair to say, and I think it's led by some of the bigger brands. I'm not going to name them, but the people that we use on a day-to-day basis, and that deliver, I don't want to say always the best experience, but it's just a consistent experience. It's almost become genericized in today, like some of these bigger companies like Amazon, those sorts of people that deliver very, very consistent experience. You know what to expect. It isn't actually the best experience when you look at it, when you really drill down to it. It isn't. It's got its flaws as well. But we expect that Amazon-like experience. Find something like razor fast, really, really quick, lightning speed, get to where you want to, have enough social proof and authority information on, is this something I really want to purchase? Yes, other people seem to like it. And then it's scary, but I can buy it with one swipe and it'll be there on Sunday. Like, that's what everybody wants. It's that B2C perfect end-to-end experience. I'm not saying everybody wants it. It's what we're becoming used to these days. So when you say that the B2B world is becoming more of a B2C-esque experience, is probably the reason why, We do see it though, because we work with customers that work across B2C and B2B. And there is different experiences, because you can imagine some of these people, if it's like tools, they might just be sat in a van on a mobile phone on some absolute trash iPhone 7 with the screens cracked. And we see this in the data all the time, And they don't want all the shiny stuff. They literally just want to find what they want, probably based on the SKU, and check out as fast as possible using a trade account. So it swings and roundabouts, really.
And it varies, obviously. Like, we've got clients that, or businesses that are, targeting very different demographics. And when we go into the data, you see very different, when we do user journey analysis, you see very different behaviour from younger demographics buying certain products, whether it's fashion, food, to we've got a client that does flower bulbs online, and it's it's largely an older demographic, and it's very, very different patterns of behaviour that we see in that, to the point where we've probably all seen this, but like sites that people have gone through a redesign and relaunched it and thought, this is the silver bullet, this is going to solve everything, and actually it's like conversion's taken a dip, because it's like they've made it nice and shiny, but actually they've disrupted that that purchase path that kind of older demographics for sure are like more set in their ways of no, we like it like this, and yeah, great, it looks shinier, but actually you've not tested it, and you've not
it's fallen into that trap of doing something that you think that you like, as opposed to what your audiences and your customers are going to actually use. And
that's what the nature of CRO is about, isn't it? Really, in every form, it's just about having a measured approach to, is this delivering an improvement or is it not? Should we develop this? Should we not? That kind of thing. Like everybody, CRO can be really complicated, and there's a lot of information out there in the world, so it's quite difficult to have one approach to digest. But simply, it is literally just, will this deliver an uplift? Will it not? Shall I put this in development? Should I not? Its core form, that's it's that simple. Yeah. But to point on what Joe just said, you have to really take an understanding of the demographic you're working with. We've got a really good example of this recently. One of my colleagues who sat in the office the other day, and we were looking at a test that we'd ran, and the result we actually gleaned from a user testing focus group, just to give us some initial steer on the results of a new UX design. And we chose a demographic that kind of fit the demographic of the customer currently, like the client base that they were working with. And the result is probably what we expected. It's that 3 designs, original, two new user experiences. Just looking at the homepage, above the fold stuff, kind of, not that the fold is like, can't say fold, but it's like it's but it depends on the device, doesn't it? But it's a mobile experience, keeping it really simple. And 40% of people chose one design, 30% chose another, and 30% chose another. And the 40, it's not like necessarily a clear result, but it gives us an indication, and we can move from there. But the point I'm trying to make is the people that chose the design, the 40% of the people, fit this demographic quite well. But everyone else we showed the test to, the older demographic, chose the original design, which is a lot of 3D elements, lots of depth, lots of shadow. And the younger people that we show the design to prefer the 2D, very, very flat design, very, very clean, very, very neat. And it's becoming more and more apparent, and it's obvious when you think about it, but design doesn't just span, the types of people we work with. It is literally a generational demographic thing as well. Like we were exposed to completely different designs growing up, everything had shadow on it, everything, very, very specific designs that didn't scale to the width of a page. But we live in an age where, it's just a given that things work in a specific way and they look like this. And it's just mad how different demographics experience different designs in different ways.
I think you touched on one of the main drivers of that is Amazon.
Yeah, of course.
Because Amazon, everybody's got an Amazon account, or nearly everybody has. So you've almost educated into checking out a certain way or navigating a site a certain way based on Amazon. Whether it's the right or wrong thing to do from a testing perspective, because Amazon have got such big data to work with, and then we as users said, right, okay, well, this is how it works. So then you're not shocked. It looks awful, but if you go on a website that's got 14 rows of product recommendations, the page is massive, you're not shocked, because whereas years ago, you were like, oh my word, what is all of this I've got to scroll through? Now you're almost educated to think, oh, it's the norm because Amazon do it.
Yeah, I think there's a second piece to that as well, and I think attention span. I think people's attention spans online have severely narrowed. I this is actually my opinion, but just I see the young generation and some of the older, but constantly like on TikTok looking for those quick reels, those quick laughs, those quick hits of like that was interesting. And I think people are just so used to that swiping, quick, fast experience. It's kind of driven to that.
How long did you say your daughter had spent on TikTok in one day? Quite a long time.
I don't know if I can say I might get strung up for it. I think it was at least 5 hours.
in a day.
Yeah. I mean, but they're on holiday. At the time of this recording, on holidays at the minute. But they're just digesting information and we're kind of teaching them, that short attention span, attitude, as in swipe to get where you want to really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it'll come full circle again one day. But people just want the information really, really fast.
What were you have a theory around this, don't you, specifically about how search will change?
Yeah, we talked about this in the last catch-up, didn't we? It's just generation. Again, it goes to generation. Like how people search online will. I'm not saying for a second that it's going to change Google and whatnot, but just that overall, the younger generation want to find things in a different way to what my generation does. My dad's generation, and the analogy I used before is like, you look at, my dad would read a book to get the information to do something DIY. I will look on YouTube, Google it to do it, then just give it a go, probably cock it up.
Set fire to something.
Set fire to something. But my daughter, who's 12, if you ask her to find something, she will go to TikTok and find, whether or not it's the actual way to do it or not.
It's scary.
Someone in the office, I've got a banister to paint at home. Someone in the office yesterday showed me a TikTok reel of somebody with one of those tanning gloves, using that to paint the banister. The finish looked brilliant. So that's a top tip, that, if anybody wants to know. So I'll be doing that this weekend. But it's how quick and easy you can get access to, and they are such short clips. It's 30 seconds, right, I know how to do it. And people are almost becoming, I'm a bit of an expert. I've watched 4 of these now. I know what I'm doing. Whereas you'd have to watch 3 or 4 videos, which are 30 minutes long, or you'd have to read an entire book. So it's how quickly we can digest and if it's actually truthful or not.
But you can see it in acquisition data as well. Obviously, paid is massive, in the world of today.
Yeah.
We see acquisition numbers. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but like probably 70% paid acquisition versus 30% organic in some cases. And that's wild, I think. People are, they're starting their shopping journeys, on paid platforms, things like TikTok, and they're bringing in, shop experiences now. I think it's actually on TikTok now, but just like Instagram Shop, where you can actually make your transactions within those platforms as well. It's crazy, it's absolutely mad. But it's changing the world, social media especially, and how people digest information. But it matters, especially from a CRO perspective, because how people got there and how their experience starts matters as well. Yeah, it plays heavily on, especially on data.
Yeah, it's how you personalise that journey as well. So if someone's coming to the site from a social media campaign that you're running, you want to try and mimic a lot of that on site. And this is kind of something where we
you want to create parity, you want to create relevance.
You don't want it to be one thing in social media and then you land on a website and it says nothing about that, and it's like it doesn't exist because it's only over here in social media.
Joe could probably touch on this, but we talk about this loads because it's something I'm mega passionate about.
The ad relevancy is something that's like probably the most common weakness that we see in most of our clients' ad accounts, because it's just. And you see it with, it's not just with, we talked about it in our talk at, we did an event, I Live, and actually doing a similar talk at your Salesfire Summit, shameless plug. But ad relevancy was one of the key things we spoke about, because we picked out some, I don't know if I can name and shame them, but a couple of big companies that their ads,
well-known brands.
Yeah, well-known brands, and their ads, everything, if you think of the headlines, it was hassle-free, promise the world, great experience. And then you click through and, for a start, one of them, you got a pop-up that you had to put your email in to get rid of it, to sign, it's already you've made it.
Hassle.
Hassle for me.
Yeah.
And there was loads more examples like that where you then land on, whether it's a product page or home page or category, where it just completely doesn't align with what the experience and what you've put in the ad. And I know that sounds dead simple, but it's amazing how many people just get it wrong. It's just bonkers.
No.
Part of the overall story, like you've just been saying there, though, if it doesn't follow through and it doesn't make sense, then, like you said, the user journey shot from a starting point, really, isn't it?
Well, this is where we pick up really from our side, and that's why I say it's more about user journey optimization, not just CRO. CRO is conversion rate optimization, sounds very, very specific, but I think it starts, you've got to look at the entire journey, and all the good CRO people out there do this, but I think when you say, a lot of people just talk about split testing or A/B testing, things like that,
Colour button.
Exactly, I know it's a terrible example.
Red versus green.
But exactly, you see that kind of stuff. That stuff might work, but there's bigger problems, always at the top of the funnel. We talk about it loads, but there's simple, easy wins. But I think in most cases, because a lot of organizations don't, CRO is still a relatively unknown thing. I think people know of it, but I think it's still a bit of a dark art, because not everybody understands it or knows it, because there's so many different approaches, so many different methods. Everyone thinks of split testing or A/B testing. But I think what doesn't help is where you might have multiple agencies involved, or you've got someone running paid, someone doing this and someone doing this. And you're always going to have a degree of testing and the content might change. But I see quite often that's where the disconnect starts, in that siloed approach, where you might have one agency that isn't really talking to another agency. No one's really managing that relationship. Yeah. And you've still got that one marketeer stretched, sat in the office trying to manage everything. And
looking at all the different reports from all the different places, and everyone's saying that they've made money from this, but when you put it together, it doesn't add up to the overall revenue that's generated by the business.
Exactly, yeah. And the biggest crime there, the biggest loss is that stuff where you see there's no relevancy because you're paying to acquire that traffic, and you're ploughing a lot of money into that, and obscene amounts in most cases, just trying to drive that traffic. But the amount of money wasted in things like relevancy being wrong, and like you say, the journey they experience when they land not being the same is crazy. Blows my mind.
What was the one we were looking at the other day? We were looking at it was Google Shopping ads, and it wasn't run by an agency. I don't feel. I think it was internal from what we'd heard, and they were advertising a pair of jeans for argument's sake. You clicked it, you went straight through to a 404, and it was like, how much have you
housekeeping in some
spent
accounts
there?
is horrible. I've seen some horror stories. Going to the wrong page that's advertised, or like you say, going to dead pages, 404.
Yeah, I think other specific examples of that is you get people that obviously because of the way they've got their variant set up on their website, it's kind of you've clicked, I don't know, a pair of blue trainers, but you get through and actually then you've been taken to a landing page that has the blue trainers on it, but you don't land on that. You land on the default, the white trainers, like really simple. But we see stuff with variants like that all the time, and it's like it's not that hard to sort out, but it's just the amount of people that just don't pay attention to it,
and the cost implication of it as well. Like just by that bounce, and that customer not seeing exactly what they want in front of them. I don't know, for argument's sake. Like if it was my dad, for example, he'd look at that and go, "Well, they're not what I want." But
he'd chip off,
and it's cost you 80p or whatever straight away.
Yeah.
Like, how many people are doing that? Yeah. Wild.
Well, this is we often talk about this with clients, don't we? Well, you always wheel out the line about the compounding effects of SEO and CRO because you invest, and it is compounding because you get the benefits of it, repeated. It applies. You do a test, you have a winning variant, has an uplift, but then that's an uplift on that test, but then that uplift continues. But with paid, it's just, you pay £1 and, you get a click or you get a sale or you don't, and that's it. That £1's gone. So I think it's just what we always try and get clients to look at is you said about the 70% split thing, is just not have all your eggs in one basket for a start. Just spread the load a bit.
Yeah.
Because that is there's no I wouldn't ever sit and say, your page should only be 50%. It depends on the nature of your business and what margins you do, etc., etc. But that is one of the key things we try and do, isn't it? Is look at
for sure.
Is because that's where the biggest long-term benefits are.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the world we're about to, I don't know. I don't want to say that AI, but it's still an unknown quantity. This
This is the man with chips implanted all over his arms and
You have to get that in, didn't you?
Yeah, cheers. No, but it's like I see people writing content all over, it's all AI generated, to try and get SEO gains and things like that. But no one really knows the ultimate outcome of that yet. I think Google algorithms change. Not all the time, but they do change
in the blink of an eye as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I've listened to it. I sat and listened to someone do a talk about AI. And like Chat GPT, it's mentioned, and we're not going into details with it, but someone using that to generate content for their entire site, but then Google can recognise that it's been generated by AI.
Yeah.
So at what point are we going to see when it's not a Google AI generating the content? Are they going to penalise people for using it?
Well, you'd expect so, wouldn't you? I mean, yeah, but it's just that's the point. It's just where to start, I think, in any of these cases. We've talked about millions of things, and I think that's one thing really passionate about on the CRO side of things. It's just getting the priorities right. You can spend so long doing something based on opinion that you think might work, or just from really ad hoc, looking at something. I think one of the worst things is, people put on, heat mapping and session tracking software. They'll look at 2 or 3 sessions, a Hotjar, and instantly it's like, oh, we need to change that because I've seen this. And that's one of the worst things you could possibly do. Unless you are 100% certain it's a blocker to sale, oh, that button just doesn't work, let's fix it. then you've got to go through a testable method that's measurable, that has a measured outcome, and has some level of statistical significance.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just guesswork. It's just, you might as well just change it to anything.
I think it sort of circles back to what you were saying about people thinking about CRO as a dark art, and like you said there, is it about changing a banner? Is it about changing a button? Is there so much else that can be done with it? And there are people out there who go, oh no, it's fine, I have this A/B testing kit, or I have Hotjar, for example, and I see what people do on the site, but like you say, it's not measured in a quantitative way, and they're looking at 3 sessions and going, right, okay, that's a problem. It might just be a problem to a certain demographic, like you've highlighted.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's good to use all the data available to you to build a bigger picture. And that's one thing we do quite early on in most projects. We'll get hold of all of the data we've got accessible to us that we're allowed to see, and do some, a form of quantitative and qualitative data analysis. Get some voice of customer. Really, really drill down to the core of why do they purchase? What are the best journeys? Which are the worst ones? Where are the biggest priorities right now for the business? In the day and age we're in right now, at the time of recording, people want lean gains right now. We see like people trying to hold back a little bit of budget and things like that. Some teams have scaled down. So I think it's probably because of the post-COVID growth and the tiny bit of decline after that, because it was golden age after during, you guys will know from the trends. But I think that's it. I think people just want to spend their money wisely.
Efficiency has kind of been the key word for us this year, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So if you think of like what most customers come asking us for, really, is like, they might not say it in so many words, but usually it's efficiency.
Yeah. And that's not to shamelessly plug Salesfire, but I think this is what's led to the relationship here, because there's certain things that can be tested, certain things that work well and work don't. But one thing I'm really passionate about is just making it easy for people to find things as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the amount of search engines I've used on websites, good websites as well, where you'll type something in, very, very simple search, and you're not getting the results that you want. It's wildly different. And I know, working corporate, like how difficult that probably is for them to manage the other side, because there's no one doing I call it searchandising, but there's no one doing that work. There's no one, it's very, very hard in most cases for someone to, where do they start? What shall I add synonyms for? What shall I create, links for? All this sort of stuff. And it's kind of like, it's a massive beast to manage all of that.
Yeah.
And then if you've got, recommendations or other things, bolted on top of that, it might be 1 or 2 people managing that entire thing, and it's hard. And it's, that's why I like Salesfire. In 95% of the cases, it can work just out of the box with everything that it's got, but it just delivers an experience, an expected experience that's quick and easy and lightning fast, which is obviously what I was just talking about with Amazon. You want it quick, you want easy, you want information in as little action as possible. So as much as I like this testing side of CRO, I think in some cases, good feature development and bringing in new features and new aspects of websites, especially around search and seek activity, is critical. Because once you get someone to your website, say if they land on your homepage, you've got to get them somewhere else, then you've got to get them somewhere as fast as possible. And we see this quite a lot on websites where you might have a homepage full of information. It could be, it could be lines and lines of text, lines and lines of images. Do you know where everybody's just going to the main menu, or they're typing in a search query almost immediately?
Yep.
And we see it all the time, unless it's a blog website or something like that. If it's a shop, that's what they're doing. They're trying to find something as fast as possible. If they didn't land on the page they wanted, and they found you through your homepage, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And delivering that, a really well-rounded experience, is critical. And I think what's pivotal to that is tools that smaller teams, I don't mean in smaller companies, can manage. And that's one of the hardest things. And we find that in the whole efficiency thing, just to touch on the efficiency thing, that's what it comes down to. It's like, can I actually manage this? Do you know what I mean? It's great paying a fortune for a tool, or any solution, search, whatever it is. But if you can't manage it internally, then it's useless.
Yeah, you're not going to maximise the usage of it.
No,
if
exactly.
You can't do it.
Exactly, yeah. And search is critical. Like, if you can't get someone through that phase on your website, get them to what they want to find as quick as possible, you've already lost them.
Have you given us 20 quid yet, by the way?
Yeah.
That's sweet. There we go.
Last night.
Excellent. That'll work.
That sounds weird.
No, no, but it's not. It's nothing to. It's not. It's just. It's not. I'm not trying to plug Salesfire, but it's a good tool. It works in majority of the cases. That's the point. It's not hard. It's not hard to use.
Yeah.
But it's even easier for smaller teams to manage.
Yeah.
And I love it for that reason. And when you come into a project and you find those immediate problems, it's not, I don't want to say a quick fix, because there's no like shotgun fix to anything. It should be tested, but it can be, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to hear it as well, because we have this concept of what we do from this end, and obviously we appreciate that our products are a good bit of kit, but it's nice to hear it from another angle, especially people who are used to working with, like you say, Adobe Commerce. I won't say the M word, I don't want to get shot. Yeah. And you look at some of the out of the box, if you, for example, go and buy Adobe as your new platform, it'll have Sensei included in it, which does a job to a point, as you say, serves a purpose. But it's that element of taking that time from people's day to actually, I think Shopify is the best example of it, is with their search, you do have the ability to go and merchandise it and do whatever.
Yeah.
But how hard is it to actually do that? And can little Brian, who's in the back office sweating 17 hours a day, trying to figure out how his order processing's going, trying to figure out his email marketing, does not have the time to be doing that. Yeah. And again, the efficiency point.
I have to go off on a tangent maybe a little bit, but it blows my mind sometimes, and I feel sorry, like the resource that and these are clients like running big businesses, and they're wearing so many hats, hats. It's like I've been on, non-agency side, I've been in businesses, and I never had to wear that many hats, but like, it's just, they're doing too much, aren't they? Like,
they're juggling a lot of things.
Yeah. And it's really hard to, keep up with. So that's why for us, like, having just the right tech partners is key to our success, because we work with you guys, but we work with Reviews, we work with .digital, and we don't have a massive tech stack. It's like kind of 5-6 key partners really, but it's just getting to know each of them. We know the exact value of each of those tools and what it can bring to that customer. Yeah. And we know that, some of it, like, can be a bit techy and we have to do it with them, but ultimately most, like, Reviews is a great platform because it's really easy for the customer to manage, and it can power their UGC. But it's just, again, it's just it's a simple tool to get integrated.
Commission.
UGC, have you paid Joy's £20?
I've paid the £20. There we go.
He's right though, but there's two sides to that. I think that is exactly right. It's having a good tech stack behind you. But I think, like, someone the other end of that stack who you can talk to, like the relationship, I think that's probably something that I'm definitely mega passionate about. I know Joe is. But just having a good relationship, being able to talk to people. Same with the clients. Like, there's nothing worse than running a project with a client that is difficult to engage with. Yeah, it's almost impossible. It's the same as like a tool or anything like that. It's difficult if you've got no one to support you, or if you've got no one to carry that baton for you. In the company when you're doing the projects, it makes it so much harder. Yeah. And CRO itself is like, difficult anyway to try and get buy-in, because people don't really know about it. They might have heard of it. Not like SEO, which is like, everyone knows what SEO is. Everyone's done a bit of SEO, haven't they? They do. It's true. It's a little bit different to that. Yeah.
It's like anything. It's pretty simple when it comes down to it. Like, good communication and good relationships are always the key to any success. Yeah. Like, with clients, with tech partners, like, between our team, it's kind of, you need to be talking to each other, and you need to just, a lot of the time it's just, if we've got a problem, like, whether, let's say we've got an integration issue, something's gone, like with you guys, the client and us, like, we don't have that many problems, but, just for argument's sake, we know that we can just pick up the phone and we can just get it, and we just thrash it out between us, and that counts for a lot. That makes it, everyone's lives so much easier. Like,
it's that whole concept of picking the phone up as well. We talked about this last night, and again, it's a generational thing. It's what people are used to. I'm happy to pick the phone up and have a conversation with people. Younger generations, their main form of contact and communication, sending I use my daughter as an example, Snapchat messaging or Facebook Messenger or Google Hangouts or Slack or any of these other chat. That's almost like their go-to form of communication now. It's like using actual words and speaking to someone. It's like, I'll just email them. Why? Pick the phone up. Yeah. Oh, well, I'll do that. And then it's an email or it's a text.
I think it's been interesting, hasn't it, to watch the kind of how some firms have evolved since COVID, and so a lot of people went to working from home, and then actually we've kind of gone full circle in that, so we've got 2 offices, one in Stafford, one in Shrewsbury, but actually when we've onboarded like a couple of new team members recently, they're in the office full time, aren't they? But because they want to be. Office, so we're not actually making them, like, and they'll probably go to 3 or 4 days at some point. But to start, it's so much easier to have people in the office, and But I know you guys are in the office a lot of the time. A lot of our clients are, to be fair, it's probably a real mix, isn't it? But a lot of them have gone actually back to, being in the office more often than not because it's just more productive.
It's so much easier to work as a team as well, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
imagine having to wait 20 minutes for like a Google Hangouts response from Dave when I can just go, "Oh, Dave, what's this?"
I'd reply quicker than 20 minutes. 10. I seen something on LinkedIn, was it yesterday, that Zoom, of all companies, are forcing their staff back in the office. It's quite funny, I thought.
It depends, obviously, what you're doing. Like, all the iWeb devs, like they've not gone back in, but they're developers. Like, they've just got, they're mad busy, and they've got a clear list of tickets that they need to work through, and they're more than happy getting their head down in the kind of monster and cracking on. Not to stereotype, but
C'était magnifique. That'll work nicely. But no, like you say, it depends on from a sales environment. We spoke about this before. Like, it's so much easier to actually be in the office and deal with our CSM team, deal with SDR, BD team, and speak to them face to face, rather than having to, again, is anyone free to hop on a Hangouts to discuss this? Like, why? And again, I really enjoy being in the office, to be fair.
I think if you were to ask everybody in here, there's no one's so much forced to come to work. It's more the case of everybody wants to be here because we're all working together, and the different departments are all working on the same thing. It's the same for you guys as well. Well, there's less music in our office than there is in yours.
We need the hard trance that'll make people want to stay longer. That's what it is. Bring back trance.
To be fair, though, it's like that. We kind of try to expand that to our clients as well. Like, I really genuinely, I'm invested in their success. I want them to do well. They do well, we do well. So it's a mutually beneficial agreement. But that's, I think, one thing I'm really passionate about. I know you are. Is just building a good relationship with the client. It makes it so much easier. Just working with people that want to do the work, that want to work with you, that want to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like you said at the very beginning, moving away from that just marketing for money, we need a bit of SEO, it's going to cost this many hours, that kind of approach. And really going somewhere with a client and growing them, not just working on very small ad hoc bits here and there.
No, I mean, for us, like our whole model, where we want to be, we only really want, maybe 15, 20 clients that we just can get under the skin of and get to know them truly and scale up with them. It's not a stack it high thing. Like, we want to obviously delight them, but it's about every member of the client services team, like, having the time to, because they're not constrained by, we don't bill by hours, so they're not constrained by, because we used to do this, like we've been there, we did it with Kanuka, it was done on hours, and it was cool, it got us to a point, but you get to a certain point in the month and it'd be like, right, okay, well, I've either got to go and ask the client for more hours now, or we're just going to down tools, and it's not, well, we don't think it's the right way to do it, and it's not the way we do it now, but so it's, it is about each of the team feeling they can go over and above where they need to. Obviously, we still track our time, and I'm not saying it's got a completely lawless thing. Like, we have to like work within some parameters, but it's like, it's like I say, we'd rather just work with 15, 20 businesses.
Joe's mobile about to go wild with 3 or 4 clients. Yeah, we'll sign off because you do everything. No hourly costs.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like I say, there's some parameters, but
Poor lad sat there on weekend. Sorry, I can't come out family. I must do this.
Yeah, sorry, kids.
Yeah, I hadn't seen him in 12 years. I wanted to ask, you mentioned something a little bit earlier, and it was around the focus group element in terms of CRO. Now, it's not something that I've heard done that commonly. It's something where you see people do, like we mentioned earlier, a bit of user testing from inside of the business, but not a focus group externally, as opposed to like random members of the public.
There's multiple ways of doing it. So there's some really, really good platforms out there for creating focus groups, user testing groups. And the way that they work is they have the people that use those, signal what they're interested in, the amount they use the internet, things like that, all their demographic information and their competency. Some of these people might be developers, they might be UX experts, they might be designers, they might just be members of the public. And on a lot of these platforms, you can choose the kind of demographic you want to advertise to, the amount of people you want to test to. And then the flip side of that is creating groups or, segments of people based on existing customer data within organizations and inviting them to test new propositions, new designs, whatever it is, new features. On your website. So there's multiple ways about going about this, and I'm not covering everything now. I'm just giving you 2 great examples. But in most cases, it's a great tool, but it should be used with everything else, I find.
Yeah.
It's great to give you a steer when testing isn't necessarily a straightforward thing. It might be a bit more difficult. There's way more development to do. And it can give you a little bit of I find data just before we go to testing, just to help build it up and get some really qualitative feedback, some good information from people saying, I didn't like this, I couldn't do this on the design, this did not make any sense, that kind of stuff, like glaringly obvious stuff in some cases, which is great, where we've got it. But I think ultimately you've just got to speak to your customers. I think the more information you can get to your customers, the more voice of customer you can add to the work that you do is critical. When we onboard a new client, we go through this really well-rounded out process of all the usual stakeholder analysis, scope of works, all that, and then we go on to something we call client blueprinting. And for me, it's a really good way of building a profile of the typical customers that they have, their demographic, all of the persona information that they might have, a look at the quantitative data, or all the data they've got, maybe from their ERP system, wherever we can get good segmented data. And then it almost creates like a roadmap and a blueprint for the type of client we want to test to if we're doing usability testing. It also gives us a mindset when we build in user experiences or we're looking at customer journeys, and it's like holding a mirror up to the project and saying, is this really the demographic we'd be advertising to? And then we can go find that demographic and ask them, whether it's in their customers or through user testing. But I think it's a crucial step a lot of people miss, especially in marketing, because it sounds like your traditional kind of marketing, you'd find it in your marketing one-on-one course, but it's who is your customer? Great, we know who they are. Go and talk to them. Find out what they think the problem is. They will tell you. And we do this, it sounds complicated, but we run some really nice NPS qualitative surveys where we can get a benchmark for what people really think about the website and just ask them, could we have done anything better today? Start there. And there's some beautiful responses, and there's some horrible and trash ones as well.
You filter those ones out.
But even people that will purchase, that go through a bad experience, they've got something to say, they've got a story to tell. And when you have enough of that information that you can draw a significant result from it, you can go and use that to feed your testing. Use that, take it internally, talk to the internal staff about it. Use that to drive forward, your testing program, your optimization program. I always say CRO and testing, but I really mean about customer experience as a whole. Like, it shouldn't just be about your web experience. It's what happens after that, what happens before that. If they call customer services, that has an impact. We worked on a project really recently like that, or a few actually, where we've great throughput of sales, but their online reviews, were terrible because, and it's not, the voice of that customer wasn't the voice of everybody. It was the voice of a specific few experiencing a very, very specific problem. And they voiced their opinion on Google reviews. Once we gave them an outlet and a channel to do that and managed to identify where the blockages were, it helped internally, round that out, because they didn't have any idea as to why that was occurring. And it allowed us to kind of steer them in a different direction and help kind of head that off. And their reviews have gone really good now, really good.
There's a lot of clients that are quite scared of going into that reviews territory in case they get but the information that you can get, albeit there's some horrible ones that can get left, and you just have to disregard them and just respond to it accordingly. But the data that you can get from it to help you make decisions on what you're doing with the website is massively.
I think the horrible ones are great. I know it's brutal, but at least they've been honest. I mean, some are obviously clearly just out to ruin your day, but some are just that they've given you honest feedback, and in most cases, if their journey was fixed, they'd swing all the way to promoting you. Do you know what I mean? They'd have the opposite experience. I've had that before. Everyone's had like a bad restaurant experience. But I've been to some before and I'm like, this is terrible, this is this. And then they come over and like, we're sorry, we've done this. And in most cases I'm like, do you know what? They fixed that problem. And they're like, oh, don't pay for this. I'm like, no, I'll happily pay for it. Like, you fixed a bad experience. And that's all it's really about. Listen to the customers. And I am the worst customer because I just hate a bad experience. I am the worst customer.
I can't vouch for that.
I'm just really passionate about delivering a good experience. And one thing that really, really grates on me is the amount of websites out there that probably sell a great product, but just deliver it on such a terrible platform. Just in some cases, I'm just like, have you actually gone through this experience yourself? If you haven't, you should. You definitely should. Yeah, 100%.
It's one of the biggest things we always ask customers at this end as well, is have you actually ever bought from your own site to see what the product comes like? Is it delivered by an everyman who's just flung it at your door and ran away?
Yeah.
Like, how does it look?
100%. Honestly, like everyone, I mean, CRO can be complicated, but genuinely the stuff we're talking about, this end-to-end journey kind of analysis and optimization, that's what it is. It's like living the experience. Go through it. It's honestly, it's the best advice I could give to anybody that works in e-commerce that might be managing this. Just test the experience on as many devices as you can. Do you know what I mean?
It is that experience side of it. What you're saying there, like, about I think retailers forget that there's that element of it. All right, there's the charging or not charging for delivery and whatnot, but there's that experience that's still going to be related to your business when the courier service is delivering your product. I won't shop with a well-known high street brand because of the way that the delivery was done. Now, that's not their fault, but I've ordered from them and they're using this courier who decided that my son's Christmas present, they just leave on the front for everybody to see, take a photo of it on the front and walk away. I had to leave work, I had to rush home and hope no one had stole it.
I thought it was the most elaborate excuse ever, by the way, for getting out of work.
I've got to go.
That was great, on the spot as well.
Yeah, how's he done that? Yeah, cool, we'll go.
But I now won't buy from them because of the courier that they use, and there's a chance of me not getting a parcel that's something important for my kids at Christmas or
They've lost your business, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the stuff. It's the difference, isn't it? Between, well, again, there's a Kano model that goes into more detail on this, but it's ultimately what we're trying to do for our customers is make the experience one that customers want to use you. So, like, you know, you go from a level of, okay, they might have to use you, there might be a distressed purchase, or they've just found you because they're the cheapest. But, you know, for that repeat purchases, you need to delight the customer, but you want to make it that experience that is. So they have to use you. Like, you know, they're going to choose to use you over and above anyone else because that end-to-end experience is you know, so slick and it's exactly what they want. But, you know, you spend a lot to acquire a customer, and you know it's very easy to lose that custom.
I mean, I think that neatly rounds up all like the efficiency piece and everything we spoke about there on CRO and the user journey on the whole. I want to ask quite a big question at this point. So there's been a lot of change, obviously, in the e-com world in terms of new product launches, in terms of GA4 and whatnot coming out and yada, yada, yada. Obviously, you guys work abreast of quite a few different spaces and have eyes on a lot of things. Over the coming year, like 12 months, is there anything that you guys see as a particularly big challenge or a big opportunity for e-commerce retailers?
Joe.
Big question.
There you go, straight out the box.
Straight to me. Look, I don't know. There's probably more than this, but for us, GA4 has been, you know, it's been a massive piece, just a massive focus for us over the last 12. Depends which customer. Some have been more on it than others, but 12,
people have been so used to free analytics, haven't they?
Free analytics,
like from Universe Analytics, and
you know, like genuinely, like, you know, this is probably quite a niche thing, but like people are really struggling to get to grips with GA4 and how to turn that. Just because it's very different, right? I'm sure everyone's been into it and used it. It looks different. It gives, like, you know, with this data that you don't get with GA4 that you used to get with UA, and you know, we've created dashboards and reports that can recalculate that. But it's UA is like something that most e-commerce managers that we work with, you know, rely on. Like, you know, there's a couple of others that maybe use a couple of other. They might use the reporting data in like Salesfire and .digital, but generally they're reporting using UA. Yeah. And now GA4, but they just haven't got to grips with it, have they?
It's like a real world problem. It's not like some fanciful, like, in 12 months it might be. It is genuinely something that people are struggling with because they haven't got access to the kind of reports they were used to. I think GA4 is great. I think it's brilliant for what it does. It really is amazing, but I think it's such a steep learning curve for people, and it kind of seems like it was done in a bit of a rush, even though people had a long time to do something about it.
No, and it is. It's that the opportunity, really, certainly for us, is helping those customers transform that data into something that is useful and actionable. And you know, we were speaking last night about the potential of things you can do to, like, you know, if you've got someone's email address, the power that gives you to then feed that into your targeting through Facebook or through Google, like, you know, whatever. But you can tie that all back into GA4, and then you've suddenly got this beautiful kind of, you know, set of tools that can help you actually, you know, make your advertising and your targeting much more efficient. So I think that's where there's a lot of opportunities at the minute. And, you know, we've been spending quite a bit of time building out different reports and different dashboards, like using J4 and I always want to call it Data Studio still, but it's not anymore, is
Looker
it?
Studio.
Looker Studio.
There's loads of premium solutions. We work with loads of them, but in most cases, people have been used to universal analytics and just that free information that's available to you and just using that. But I think one thing that's always, and this is the biggest thing for me, and it's not just in the next 12 months, it's something that we always look at, it's just how accurate is that data? Because in so many cases, it's really inaccurate. Like if you actually just look at the application, like say if you looked at Shopify versus the UA data or GA4 data, there's sometimes some wild discrepancies between them. And whilst some are accepted, you're going to find that there's a discrepancy because they both report and record in different ways. People use different data points and different data sources to drive business decisions.
Yeah.
In e-commerce ones especially. So I think for me, it's just, what do you do with all that data? It just sits somewhere, and it's like people are moaning about, losing all the UA data, like 10 years worth of history. How relevant is that 10 years?
Yeah.
Like, is it?
How much has actually gone on in 10 years outside of e-commerce as well? The changes that have happened in people's lives and all that sort of stuff.
You can't make decisions that simply based on that information anymore, because it's a different world.
You'd be surprised the amount of time that people will complain about losing 10 years worth of data, but they didn't actually do anything with it up to the point before it was taken. And then once it was taken away, I needed all of that information. I think GA4 is probably better for reporting on actual events and stuff. It's a better way. It's such a steep learning curve to change from one for retailers. And like you mentioned earlier, people wearing so many different hats within a business. All of a sudden, the one metric that they've used for gathering data for this, and this isn't there.
Yeah.
So they have to learn something completely new whilst trying to manage all these other things. So it can be quite a challenge for retailers, especially with smaller teams.
Yeah.
I'm going to flip the question back.
Oh, nobody ever does this.
I like what you've done here. I like what you've
Reverse
done.
Uno.
Jesus, this is deep. Normally we just we're like the police. We just ask the questions and you just respond. Not that I know what the police do. Please cut that out, Kaelan. It's a really, really interesting one. And personally, the biggest one for me is how people view their platform on the whole. So this sounds very vague. It does sound very vague, and it is very vague.
It's a little bit vague. It's okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
So, the big twist that I'd seen everybody talk about forever was looking at a headless approach and looking at how you make a composable tech stack, and how you mentioned there an e-commerce manager sits and wears a hat for Salesfire, they wear a hat for the Google Analytics, they wear a hat for everything else in between, and they have to understand how all these things work. Is there something down the line where people won't necessarily have to look at a completely decentralized way of doing it, but it's more of a centralized tech stack? Is it something where a platform comes to the fore where they have their own analytics, which is comparable with a GA4?
I think it's coming.
Go on.
It's already here, isn't it? I think. But I think if you look at, it's getting there. But I think we talked about Adobe before and how Magento and the Adobe cloud solutions and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for them to combine all of that together into one really, really neat package. They're already doing it now. Like we went to their conference, didn't we? And their partner day, and there's some amazing stuff going on there.
Yeah.
And some companies, work with Adobe, some don't. But I think from an Adobe commerce point of view and the cloud-based solutions, I think there's some amazing stuff to come. It's just a long journey, I think.
That's it. It's that time frame in between of how will a Shopify respond, will a big commerce respond, who can respond out of anyone who has the access to it.
Will there be new technology launched in the meantime as well? Because it's one of the things we find is they'll set a time frame for delivering something, but a new piece of technology that'll come in to help with the sales journey and whatnot, sales itself, and it's like, we have to factor this into what we're doing now, and then so there's so many different things that can be moved.
What's yours?
I would probably, I've not really thought about it in too much detail.
Can't ask the questions and not think about
Dodging that question.
You asked the question, to be fair.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Probably sacked after this, to be fair.
I think there's probably going to be, the biggest thing for me is going to be data. And I'm not just saying this because you guys are here and that's what it's people are going to be aware that they've got access to so much data that they've not done anything with it before. Yeah. There's going to be a big education piece. There's going to be more work for agencies like yourselves that lean on that, but I think there's going to be that educational side to bring that in-house and start to really focus on that, and because it's going to be vital that people know their audiences because acquisition is so expensive. So getting to a point where they have that trusted relationship externally, or they bring somebody in-house that's going to be able to look over the data, look at GA4 and help help those people in those roles that are quite lean and wearing different hats, because it's becoming, there is that many areas for data now. I mean, we've touched on this quite a few times, but I mean, Salesfire, just as a standard system, has so much analytics in it. We've got our trend system that provides a load more data for benchmarking. There's the GA stuff, which is like UA to GA4. Adobe have their own version of that. I mean, they were the original sort of analytics system before Google Analytics. I'm sure my age a bit there. There's so many areas for sourcing data. You need to actually find out what your acquisition looks like, and not cutting people out, but actually allocating the right percentage of that acquisition, as opposed to, right, well, PPC was the first person to drive, it was the first touch point, so they should get all the acquisition of that sale, or Salesfire was the last touch point, so there should be, so it needs to be a happy medium, because I think that's where there's going to be the biggest wins over the next 12. For me, that's why I see it.
Yeah,
that's a half decent answer, that, mate. It almost sounded scripted.
Well, it actually wasn't.
There's a 20 quid return there.
It's from the heart.
I think just tying into that, obviously, like, cookieless is coming. Like, we'll be cookieless. Like, and that we see the impact of that at the minute. Just people not having, the loss of data they have through the way their cookie content is set up. That's going to change. The power of first party data is going to become more and more important. And AI is going to do some heavy lifting in data, but what it will probably never do is, hopefully for us anyway, there's still always that, there's the need for, there's that human element to understand and and process that data. Like, AI can do the heavy lifting and present it in a nice way for you, but into nice dashboards, nice segments, like product reports, whatever. But you still need that.
You need to interpret that data.
Yeah, you still need to interpret it.
And what it
You
actually
still need to
means
mine
to
it.
the business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, make it relevant. Yeah.
So, gents, I think that's just about a wrap for today. Thank you very much for coming up, Joe and Ilan.
Cheers for
It's
having
very
us.
much
Thanks for having
appreciated.
us.
If you want to speak to Joe and Ilan as well, by the way, they will be speaking at our summit in September.
Yep.
So
Really looking forward to it.
So try and catch them early, because they will be busy, I would imagine. If you can catch Ilan at all after he's finished talking, he just disappears.
No, I'm sticking around for the golf day, so I'll be there all night.
Probably be at the bar.
Yeah. Rounded off nicely. There you go.
Okay.